As ready as we're gonna be.
What are we talking about? Fantasy worlds? Right. I
Making
remember.
world fantasy interesting.
Right.
I am. Oh, you're happy. Foxy out of the way. He doesn't have to be here right now. So we don't go live officially till about half an hour from now, right? In 25 minutes. What?
Yeah.
No. Really? Glad I have some water.
Mhm.
Okay. That wasn't what I understood.
Yeah, I was like, okay, so I'm going from this panel to this panel to this panel in quick succession.
I'm going to double check on their schedule because that just doesn't seem right.
Yep, we are supposed to be up. Does that say? Uh-huh. This is a 3-hour one. Good thing I grabbed the salami. Okay. Come on.
Oh,
Break.
okay. I'm glad I wasn't any later. I'm glad I made my quick bio break.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it's on Siobhan's channel, so I will.
Hey, Sparkles. This is a joke, but I'm eating salami so that Amy doesn't murder me.
Okay. Yeah, sure. Self-care important.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, my husband brought me tea. So
Also, what have I eaten today? I had coffee. I had peanuts. Did I eat? I ate cheese. I ate cheese. I think I have that open, but I'm not sure.
we had a talk document too, Eli. I just popped it into the
Yeah,
Discord.
I have it.
Okay. Awesomeness.
That's
Okay.
not what I'm looking for. That's what I'm looking for. Okay.
Just try to organize. Too many things. I have 2 monitors and it's not enough. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. Well,
Yep.
I'm glad you're able to. So
I told Buddha this morning I had one panel. I did at the time. Mm-hmm.
okay. Well, what else? Where do we start? We are live and
Yeah.
sure. Who wants to go first? Hello, I'm Amy Winters Voss, also known as Shy Red Fox. I'm the author of the urban fantasy Rise the Liminal Chronicles, and I love fantasy. The first fantasy book my mom read to me when I was 5 was like The Hobbit. So it's more of your traditional fantasy, but ever since then, I was hooked. So, of course, I had to be here. So,
And I am Eli Quake. I am a fantasy, among other genres, writer mostly. And My brain has just gone right out of my head. What are we talking about again?
Making fantasy worlds
Making
interesting.
fantasy worlds
Right.
interesting. Yes.
Yes. Yeah, I have multiple fantasy worlds that I write in. They're all a little different. So yeah. And I'm pinch hitting. Yay.
And I will reintroduce myself since I realized that I was muted.
Oh,
I forgot to turn my own mic on. So,
We got to hear you, but
Yeah. well, you got to hear me. The closed captioning came up, but I'm Siobhan the Writer. I'm a trans author who writes fantasy novels. And welcome to Making Right.
Good work. Please commence with break time now.
Oh, I just had a stream that was still on, so
oh my.
oh,
Okay.
whoops.
no, it was the the Writer's Conduit. So there's
So it
sprint
was the-
timer.
Yep.
So
Too many things going on for all of us today. This is
Seriously, yeah.
I apologize. It's just a lot of last minute craziness.
Yep.
So-
but we will talk.
right. So let's start with Shy. What kind of fantasy worlds do you write?
Well, it depends on what you're talking about. So, like, for the book that I've published, I wrote an Asian fantasy, which is in modern day Japan, but the fantasy aspect of the mythology and the folklore, especially with the yokai, is the focus, and suddenly like more real than we know it. But other aspects that I like to focus on. I know sci-fi isn't technically in the traditional fantasy, but I love sci-fi. And one of the next books I want to write eventually is a fantastical sci-fi of a group that was left behind and needs to find a new planet, but there's a huge hitch with letting them come to your world. So those are two of my favorites, but I love so much fantasy. Like I said, I grew up on The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings and The Belgariad and all sorts of things like this. I love stories, especially fantastical stories. So
Yeah. Eli?
I write a variety of different fantasy worlds. It depends upon what I'm writing. So I have the Reaper Saga, which is the one that I am most known for because that is the one that I have published. I am also working on a world called Bill, which is it's a world of gods and magic. The Reaper Saga is very different. It is a paranormal fantasy. There are gods, arguably, but they're less active than the ones in Bill, for example. And then there's other worlds that I have too. I'm working on a brand new one, Broomsphere, which is not so much with the gods, but yes, with the magic.
Okay. Mine is medieval style fantasy. I'm your typical fantasy writer, but I was an epic fantasy. So I've got your elves, your dragons, your. But I like to throw in a lot of culture as well in the fantasy, because culture is one way to make it interesting.
yeah.
I know Sparkles likes to go with industrial style, like the Industrial Revolution type time. So of course, his fantasy world would have trains and magic and
Yeah.
so. How else could you make a fantasy world interesting? Well, I mean, you get rural fantasy, or urban fantasy, I should say, which is
Yes.
fantasy set in the modern world. You could do ancient history fantasy. It's, oh, look,
Yeah,
it's fantasy set in the Stone Age.
Oh, I'd love to read that. Actually,
Oh, that would
doesn't
be
Clan of the
interesting.
K-Bear do that?
They do, but they don't.
They do, but they don't. Okay,
That's
fair
more
enough.
of a historical.
Okay.
We never did define fantasy. Do we need to
We
Go
should
back
define
and do that.
fantasy. Yes.
We should define fantasy. Yeah, probably.
All right. Fantasy is a from the Greek, and I can't pronounce the Greek letters, meaning making visible. Is a genre of fiction that concentrates on imaginary elements, the fantastic. This can mean magic, the supernatural, alternate worlds, superheroes, monsters, fairies, magical creatures, mythological heroes, and essentially anything that an author can imagine outside of reality. With fantasy, the magical or supernatural elements serve as the foundation of the plot, setting, characterization, or storyline in general. Nowadays, fantasy is popular across a huge range of media: film, television, comic books, art, games, art, and literature. But its predominant and most influential place has always been in literature. So, outside of reality, here's some questions we have. Does it have to have magic?
Absolutely not.
No.
Nope.
Fantastical elements? Probably. Magic?
Not
Maybe
necessarily.
no.
Yeah.
Or even things beyond, anything beyond our normality. So it could be technology, it could be magic, it could be mysteries to solve that seem, like magic. It could be paranormals. It could be, there's so many things that it could be.
All right, now, here's the magic. What is it?
That's a good question. It depends upon your world.
According to the Oxford Dictionary, the power of apparently influencing the course of events by using mysterious or supernatural forces. I mean, when you're doing a fantasy, is it a low fantasy, a high fantasy?
And maybe we need to define those, because we
Yeah.
threw that into our document and I'm like, I don't remember the definition. So can we
Yeah.
chat about that?
Yeah.
That's just it. We can chat about it.
Okay. If I understand it right, high fantasy is like the traditional Tolkien with magic and elves and dwarves and all of that. But where would a low fantasy be?
That's interesting because I've seen some videos on YouTube. I'm thinking specifically of Hello Future Me, but I know it's been covered by other people and I can't remember who. To Hello Future Me, at least, I remember high fantasy was defined as a fantasy where the world and the magic are super duper really well defined with specific rules and all of these other things. Tolkien would actually be described more as low fantasy because the magic system is not defined very well.
And magic, the other thing too is the magic system of Tolkien's books isn't utilized much.
No, it's really not.
This is what would make it a low fantasy.
Okay, we'll see. This is a good discussion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, high fantasy is high magic, high fantastical creatures.
Yeah.
Like lots of it.
Lots of it.
Low fantasy is you've got some magical creatures, maybe some magic. I mean, Stephen R. Donaldson does technically a low magic series with his Thomas the Unbeliever.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah, and I know I keep referring to in multiple panels at this point, Robin McKinley. Specifically, I'm thinking of her Damar books. They are definitely low fantasy because there is magic, but is it well defined? Not exactly. Is it used much? Not really.
whereas Mercedes Lackey
Oh, good
is
example.
definitely high fantasy. So is Robert Jordan.
Have not read Robert Jordan. I will take your word for it.
Kit Falbo had an interesting point here. They say high fantasy is of those who are in power, low fantasy is those out of power. Epic fantasy is about the wide scope. So that's
Interesting.
an interesting point too.
Yeah, and we didn't even touch on epic fantasy,
Not
really.
yet. That was going to be the next point. Epic versus small scale.
Right.
Like epic fantasy, that would be like world encompassing.
Yeah. That would be what I'm trying to do with Belle, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm doing with the Corrigenda Chronicles. That's what Terry Goodkind did with the Wizard's First Rule.
That
Sword
would
of Truth
be
series.
Patrick Rothfuss with the shoot. What is Name of the Wind? But there's a name for the series I can't remember.
Yes, Tolkien is epic fantasy.
Yes,
Yes.
Tolkien is epic fantasy.
And go ahead. I'll have one after you're done.
Okay. Arguably, my book Reaper would be
Check your posture and be
small
sure
scale.
to hydrate. Sprint mode is engaged. Time
Because
to commence with the sprint.
It is fantasy,
luck.
but there is not a ton of world building that I go really in depth in because it's our world with
We just had a whole bunch of things change on the screen.
Yes.
I look like a kid. I lost 40 years. Yeah.
I'm just going through and killing all my.
tabs.
Okay.
Yeah.
While Siobhan is reordering things, one of the high fantasies or epic fantasies that I liked was a steampunk and sci-fi and magic-based series that Jack Campbell did called The Pillars of Reality. It's a young adult series, but my whole family loves it. We've listened to it multiple times on audiobooks. And they start small, and suddenly the whole world is changing, and it's really, really, to me, it's been a lot of fun. But it was just, they start with two people and their interactions and how it goes and changes the whole world. So,
Well, yeah. Magic Kingdom for Sale sold. By Trey
Oh,
Brooks.
I loved that book. That book was fantastic. Yes, that was good. Yeah, I actually have a story that I was working on last night on my Chillin' Chat where I'm looking at it and I'm going, this is not a little story. This is a very big story. And I need to be careful before I start writing this because I need to figure out what is going on. And it's a fantasy story in which there's a group of archaeologists and they find this pot that contains all of the gods and all of the magic.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. And they open it because they're archaeologists.
Dumb.
Which is why I'm like, this is not a little story. This is not a short story. This is a big one, and I need to think about it.
And it could be a collaborative group of stories, too.
It could.
So I was going to see if there was any other comments in the thing. Go ahead and I'll catch up on the comments for us. So I'll be the comment meister.
Okay.
Okay.
Some of the things we were wanting to know for with magic is magic used for everything or a reason it's only used by... Is magic used for everything, or is there a reason it's only used by or for a certain group of people?
That really depends on the world that you're building.
Right.
Yeah. There are worlds, I've seen them, where everybody has magic. I have also seen worlds where it's a very select number.
Yeah.
In my book Rise, everyone has the capability, but it's gone kind of dormant. It's magic was one of those, the West looked upon them and are like, oh, that's just superstitions. We need to do all science.
Mm-hmm.
And it went dormant, and now they're rediscovering in the human population. So
Nice.
so you can have aspects that are they're bold.
Yeah.
So
What are the laws and limits?
Yeah.
I mean, like, my magic system, if you don't prepare properly, you can kill yourself.
Yeah. And that's one of the things that Mercedes Lackey did as well, is if you use too much power, you die.
Well, yeah.
and that makes sense, or if you take power.
Oh, if
physically
you take
it.
power.
Yeah, that's always dangerous.
Dicey. And in Mercedes Lackey's books specifically, if you take power from someone else, there's two ways to do it. There's the right way and there's the wrong way.
Yeah.
If you do it without permission, you are putting a really dark mark upon your soul. And if you do it with permission, you're still playing with dicey things, but it's less bad.
Well, the thing is, usually if you're taking it with permission,
Yeah.
They're actually feeding it to you,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and that's the
Yeah.
difference. And I've got that in my book too, where it's like you can take it, but it's gonna usually end up with one person being dead.
Yeah. Yeah. That's in Mercedes Lackey too.
Yep.
Usually the person you're stealing magic from dies.
Yeah.
Not always, but
Yep.
in most cases.
There were some more comments since I'm the comment
Okay.
meister today. Kit Falbo again, a lot of okay. Oh, Fantasine said I'm working in Epic. The world is kind of a character of its own in my work in progress. And then Kit Falbo said stories are often a blend of these factors in a spectrum.
Yep.
You can have moments of all of them.
You can.
It's true.
I mean, you could have an entire group of people who don't have magic at all.
Yeah. And
And
it can be a large group or it can be a small group. It
And
depends
in
on what
fact,
you're doing.
Who knows? Maybe the magic just washes right over them. They don't pay any attention to it.
You can have people who are immune to magic. I've seen that.
Yep. Terry Goodkind did that in his Sword of Truth series.
Mhm.
So,
There is a question that just popped up. I'll read it aloud here. Fantasine says, I would love to know your perspectives on magic that changes based on how it is used, i.e., a spell used by a cook in a tavern would differ from a camp trail cook or someone making their family's dinner.
oh.
Interesting. Okay. Let me think about this one for a minute.
Well, I can actually do this because in my story, my main character was told to figure out how to use defensive spells offensively and offensive spells defensively. Because what most people consider an offensive spell is, like, say, a lightning bolt. How would you use a lightning bolt defensively?
Right.
Hit the tree over there, let it have it come down between you and your opponent.
Or to provide something in between.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How would you use a ball of force offensively?
Squish them.
Yeah. Or just entrap them.
Yeah. I think to the specific example that was given, that's a matter of scale. So a cook in a tavern, let's use, for example, a fire spell to cook food.
Yep.
A cook in a tavern is going to have that going constantly because a cook in a tavern is cooking all the time. They're either baking bread or they're making soup, or you get my point. They're cooking the entire time.
Yeah.
Now, a trail cook will use it more extensively than, for example, someone making their family's dinner because they have to cook for more people.
But it's also limited.
But it's also limited. It's not like the tavern cook who is cooking all the time. I'm cooking for longer because I'm cooking for more people, but it's still just a brief amount of time that I am cooking. A person cooking their family's dinner, probably done in half an hour, depending.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's it. The other thing, too, is a trail cook might let it burn all night. And
That's
let it
true.
just burn down. And magical fire, you can just... Some magical fires you can just put out with a thought.
Mhm.
So it makes it... For a trail cook, that's perfect.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, we're done. We're moving on. Because this way they don't have to start a fire in the morning either.
Yeah.
If they let it go all night, they can just come back out, cook breakfast, have it ready for when everybody else wakes up, put the fire out, and they can eat on the road.
Yep.
For me, I wasn't thinking so much trail cooks and stuff, but it's a matter of how do you build up your magic? And in my book, some people have built it up naturally and just continually use it, and then their abilities grow. But some people have used shortcuts, and it hampers them personally, and they have to continue to use those shortcuts. So that is my...
And that's the other thing. How it's used depends. Because, I mean, my MC has more power than he knows what to do with.
Hmm.
But if he isn't, if he does things in a hurry, without proper preparations, there's going to be backlash because he's got that power.
Right.
The thing is, people who have less power have been known to cast more powerful spells because they've taken the time to gather it in together and build and do the preparation.
I have one more example that I was trying to think of. In one of my favorite series lately has been by Rachel Aaron, the Detroit Free Zone series, and it's another urban fantasy because that's what I've been into lately, where there's two schools of thought, and one is very, very looked down upon, and one is not. And if you try to use the wrong school that is not naturally attuned to you, there's backlash, there's issues, and you can destroy the ability to use your magic. So that's been a really, really fun one for me. So
Well, not so.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Eli.
Oh, I was just thinking, the example that was given of shortcuts, it's okay, real world example. I cannot hang on, sorry, alarm going off. I cannot spell Wednesday by itself. I use Wednesday. Wednesday. Every time I'm spelling it, I am either thinking or saying Wednesday.
Yeah.
This is an example of a magical shortcut. It's a real world shortcut, but it's a shortcut.
Yes.
And there's other words that I do this for too.
I mean, shortcuts. Like, okay, how many days are in June? 30. How do I know this? 30 days has September, April, June, and November.
June and November.
All
have
the
to
rest
do
of
the-
31.
I do the knuckle.
Oh, yeah,
January,
that's
February,
the other
March,
way.
April. That's the only way I can remember it.
How do you divide by 9 or multiply by 9?
I didn't learn that one, man.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Teach me later. Teach me later.
Yeah,
This
I'll
is not
teach
the
you
point.
Yeah.
But yeah, humans have shortcuts. And if there are shortcuts for Wednesday or how do you multiply by 9, there are shortcuts for magic too.
Yep. And in my world, every race has its own magical signature. So you can tell who cast what by the signature. Now, what happens if someone has multiple signatures?
Are they mixed race?
Are they mixed race? Have
Did
they
they-
studied? Or is it some sort of anomaly?
Yeah, is it
Yeah,
is it
an
a-
anomaly that everybody thinks can't happen.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Back to comments. Kit again said authors decide boundaries for the magic system. Often what makes characters interesting is when they choose to go outside of said boundaries, though you must be careful of the Mary Sue issue of them only being the ones to be so inventive. So
Oh yeah. I mean, that's just it. Even my bad guys will be inventive.
Oh yeah. Yeah, if your bad guy's not inventive, what are you doing?
Yeah. If my
you have a boring character.
if my good guy's been trained to use magic outside the considered norms, why isn't the bad guy?
Yeah.
He's been around a lot longer than the main character.
Oh yeah, and they have to be worthy of being dealt with. You know, as
Yeah.
otherwise it's just
Yeah.
like eliminate him. We're done. We don't even need a story.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it was
My
a lovely. Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, it's okay. My antagonist, surprise, there is an antagonist for the Reaper Saga. Shh. There is an antagonist for the Reaper Saga, and she is infinitely smarter than my main character.
Yeah.
And that is all I'm going to say about that.
But I mean, there is a difference between book smarts and street smarts.
That's true.
And people smarts, and mechanical smarts, and all kinds of smarts.
And magical smarts.
Yes, it's a matter of being able to utilize what you've been given, because yeah, it's
Yeah.
That's happened there. Kit?
Kit. And we had
Yeah.
a great comment on sneaky cook fire.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
Loved it.
they were Fantasy was talking about different classes utilizing like social classes utilizing them. So
There
Yeah.
was another good comment from Fantasy. It said, I make bad guys as if I was making the hero. You
exactly.
need to put as much detail into it. You have to make your world, your magic, everything interesting and relatable to your reader, or they're going to get bored.
Yeah.
My son was like, yeah, I don't know if making fantasy worlds interesting is the right question. He's like, you got to make it relatable. And he definitely had a point there.
Well,
So-
that's the whole thing, right? If you want it interesting, it has to be somewhat relatable. You have to be able to suspend disbelief long enough to actually enjoy it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You have to be drawn in and identify with and have some need met or interest met or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just had an interesting idea, and I want to thank you guys for inviting me to this panel because I wouldn't have had it otherwise. So I have this story in Bell. It is my one book that I have finished, sort of vaguely ish. And I did not flesh out my quote unquote villains very well. And I had the idea, what if I have differing perspectives in this story of the one side versus the other? Because war is an argument between two sides, right?
Well,
I'm
yeah.
going to have to work on that. Not right now.
All right. Well, let's go back to the list. What is ordinary vanilla fantasy?
Ordinary vanilla fantasy? Is there a such thing?
Well, there's nothing new under the sun.
Yeah.
It's all been. Hasn't been done too many times. Right. This is what most people consider vanilla fantasy. It's like, okay, I've read this book already. It's been done
Yeah.
too many times. Or how many of us grew up on that?
Not
There-
me.
See, I remember when we were talking about Korea and this topic came up. For some people, the original style of fantasy, that when fantasy was new and it was like the big thing and it was the escape, it was basically a Tolkien like
That's true.
setup, and so it was done over and over several many times, and so people started to branch out, and then now we have science fiction. We have, of course,
Urban
science fiction was its own
fantasy.
thing,
Yep.
but yeah,
Science fiction.
urban fantasy, magical realism. We have so many different things, and
Yeah.
so I think that's where this question came from. And I don't have a problem with it because there's definitely times I want to go back to a
A comfortable
simple
thing, right?
fantasy. Yeah, something comfortable, something I can just eat popcorn with and, just not
Mhm.
worry about.
I mean, here's
Yeah.
the thing. Why is science fiction and fantasy lumped together as a genre?
Because they both deal with the fantastical, but in different ways. One does it through technology, maybe future technology, but and the other one does it through not always magic, but usually fantastical elements that cannot possibly exist in our world.
Or both.
I'd say Clark's
Starship's
Law.
Mage.
Or both.
I would
yeah.
say Clark's Law. Any sufficiently
Tell us
advanced
what-
technology is indistinguishable from magic.
That's true.
Any advanced magic is indistinguishable from technology. So, I mean,
I had something I was going to say, but I don't remember what it was.
So while we're thinking, and I'm going to go back to the comments just so that everybody can kind of like process here. Kid again said the main character wins by being so dumb that someone did not expect it. I love that.
Yeah. Isn't that like a huge anime trope, I think?
Or
Jack Sparrow.
Lathan said Jack Sparrow. Yep.
Jack Sparrow, yeah. Oh, I
That was so
remember.
funny.
Speaking of vanilla fantasy, a lot of fantasy novels, at least traditionally, tend to be set in like Renaissance medieval time period.
Yes. Yes.
Um,
And there are other
there are other
times that-
times that you could choose.
Yeah.
There
Yeah.
are a lot of different times that you could choose. Actually, a really good one that I have read by Jim Butcher is a fantasy novel that is Roman-esque. He was given the prompt of Pokemon and the Lost Roman Legion, and he wrote a novel about that.
Oh my
Actually-
gosh, what a prompt.
Actually, several, and the first one's really good. I have not read the others. I keep meaning to and getting distracted. But the first one's really good.
Codex Alera is what Kit says.
Yeah, Codex Alera. That's the one that I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Okay.
Pokemon and the Lost Roman Legion, and it's
It's just
excellent.
fun. I love it. I just love it. I love the premise.
I mean, that's like
yeah.
Piers Anthony Xanth.
Oh, Xanth was good.
I
Pierce
couldn't
Anthony
stand
not
it.
so much, but
I couldn't stand the Xanth novels.
Oh, really?
some
Yeah.
problematic things in there. I
Yeah.
will agree.
I mean, I loved his juxtaposition series, though.
Yeah, the concepts in Xanth were interesting. Some of the tropes he used were not.
And
There's the thing.
yeah,
Have we got more comments? Because I'm
We do.
waiting on comments.
Oh, Fantasine said there is such a thing as vanilla ordinary fantasy, and I would say books wrote for RPGs in the 80s and 90s would classify as that because it was all cozy reading where you know the worlds and background characters and you are just taking in an adventure without learning a new world.
that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
Oh, and Barbarossa. Hello, Barbarossa.
Oh, yeah.
Happy
Hi,
New Year.
Sparkles.
Hello,
Um,
Sparkles.
Says, I am currently experimenting with the idea of a world of magical plants, metals, etc. But mages are not magical, only learned people, alchemists, and whatnot. So that's really
Yeah.
kind of cool
Yeah.
too.
I am the Broomsphere world that I very briefly touched upon. Is a world where there's this magical mist that makes people forget everything, like not how to breathe, but pretty much everything else.
Mhm.
And there are. I'm not going to spoil things. There is a character who can walk through the mist. He creates a magical force field or whatever, and is able to create a small pocket of I can walk through this, and I'm not going to forget everything. But he's the only one at the beginning of the story that you know of that can do that. Without giving away too many spoilers, there is someone else.
Well, yeah.
But
There's
it's a learned skill.
Yeah. she let her breath. She hadn't realized she'd been holding it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, then on our thing is, what twists can you use to make something your own? And the first thing
Yeah.
on that list was tropes.
Tropes. Yes.
After this, I'd love to take a break because we have
Yes.
been
Yeah,
about
it'll be about
45
right.
minutes. So
Yeah, I need a small break too. I'm wearing my binder today, and it is bunching up
Is
in
it
the
warm?
middle.
Oh,
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
I'm gonna-
Uncomfortable.
Take it off. I
Yeah.
think.
TMI. But
No, it's
So do-
part of a panel we had yesterday.
Yeah.
But yeah,
do we want to finish this or do we want to take the break?
No, let's do
Let's
the
just-
tropes real quick.
yeah, we'll do tropes.
Okay. Okay. So tropes. I love obviously the Japanese culture and things. So there are a lot of those tropes I've been twisting, but also trying to find the tropes in Japanese culture. So like one of them is the teacher has all powerful say over his students, and I get to challenge that. And so it's finding the little niches that aren't as explored can be a whole lot of fun.
Yeah. I mean, think about the trope of the knight rescuing the princess from the fire-breathing dragon. Well, what happens if the dragon and the princess are in collusion?
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
No, he's not good enough for you. What do you want me to do with him? Kill him. Okay.
Yeah.
Or the dragon needs to be rescued by the prince and the princess. You know, there
Or
are so
or
many
The
things.
dragon needs to be
What?
rescued from the princess.
Oh, yeah. One of my favorite Tumblr post things that I've seen going around is the dragon is the princess.
Yep.
Yeah.
Fun.
Yeah.
I haven't seen that one yet.
Oh, that one's good. I'll send it to you later.
Thank you.
But yeah, I like to take tropes that aren't necessarily fantasy based and twist
Yes.
them so that they are.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
one thing I like to do.
Like the lone gunman.
Oh, lone gunslinger in a fantasy trope? Oh, hell yeah.
Yes. Very fun. And they can be used again if you're going for cozy, you can still add a little twist just to make it
Just a
a
smidge.
little different, you
Yeah.
know. So yeah.
Yeah, I like that. Kit says Shrek did that exactly.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, Shrek took fantasy tropes and turned them on their head. And it was great. Everybody loved it.
Yeah. I even liked it, and it was not really my thing, but I enjoyed, you know, not normally a thing I would watch, but it was fun. I didn't watch the
Yeah.
second one, but I watched the first one.
The second one was almost as good. It was pretty good. It was decent.
Yeah. After the third, it was like, what the heck are they doing?
Yeah, after the third, it's like, why are you doing this still? Stop.
Uh,
Um,
well, at least
but that's
they only went to 4 plus the Christmas special.
mm,
Yeah, there comes a point where you need to stop.
Yeah. there is no Christmas special in Ba Sing Se, is all I'm going to say. For those of you who have not seen Avatar: The Last Airbender, first of all, you should watch it, and second of all, that was hilarious.
Yeah, Makola Boyd says, it's fun finding the ways to twist tropes or even add ones that are different and make them coexist.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, utilizing those again, tropes can be overdone, but I don't think we should bash them because they're very useful tools, and they're things that people identify with.
Well, that's
We
just
just
it.
have to-
Tropes are tropes because of that.
Yeah. Like,
Very much so.
yeah. I had a thought. It realized where it was.
And it ran away.
Yeah.
God, I have had so many of those today. Oh my gosh.
All weekend with me with the I had a thought. What was it? I don't remember.
And then you go, no, on that one panel, someone was accusing me of of the bat stealing their thoughts.
Oh.
It's like, yeah, the bat
Is
came and
it-
stole my thoughts again.
Yeah.
Is it break time?
I think it's break time.
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll be back in
Because
we'll be back in a few
Fine.
minutes.
Yep.
See y'all later.
See you.
Thank you very much for the sub bomb sparkles. Thank you very much. And welcome to the community, E. Armstrong and Satrium. And
Just a
we're-
heads up for everybody, I'm dealing with really bad eye allergies, so I'm going to go into VTuber mode. It's just so that I won't be so distracting on screen, and then I can still be a part of the discussion. So love y'all. I'm hitting VTuber mode.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Oh,
Do we all want to
turn
do?
off the
Oh wait,
background.
I was going to say, do we all want to do VTuber? And then went, wait, Siobhan can't. Never mind.
Actually, I could.
You could?
Up to you guys.
Doesn't matter. I'll stay with this.
Okay.
Okay.
I might go over to VTuber, but it'll take me a second to set up. So
Yeah. So, we've covered tropes. How about finding gaps in existing stories and myths and folklore?
I can add to this one. Similar to what I said over in
The mythology
The-
panel.
mythology panel, yes, where you don't know in the Kitsune legends you see almost always female kitsunes. Not there are some males that dress up as pretend to be females as a trick, but it's almost always females, and it's like, why? What can be done about this? So I got to fill in that, or putting your character like Sojobo is a traditional character, putting him in modern times, and how would he have to deal with that, being an ascetic monk who tries to hide out, and you can't really do that in modern times. So,
not really. No, it's very hard. Yeah. I'm sorry, I am distracted. And not thinking particularly well.
There we go. Now you got everybody in the right spot.
Where is what I am looking for? I can't find it. It's probably not in here, is the problem. Here it is. I found it. Yay.
Hello, Brian.
Hey, Brian. Hey, Brian.
we just were borrowing each other's names momentarily,
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine.
No, this is just a callback to the trans panel. Don't worry.
Yeah.
And trying new names.
Oh,
And Shlancha.
oh, right. I forgot about that.
Yes,
Aqua?
now we have a second.
Oh, we have another.
Yep. Shlancha.
1, 2. There we go.
I slurped, so you can tell.
Yep. And a posture.
Oh, my posture's terrible. I checked.
Okay, Jason. Or Aaron.
Very Aaron thing to say. Yes.
So where did we leave off again? I'm trying to. Oh, we left off at tropes.
No, we were starting in the gaps.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we finished tropes. So
Oh, there was
So,
a
and
comment.
I-
There was a comment about tropes by Fantasine earlier. Speaking of messing up tropes, was fun with tropes can be fun. Myth Adventures comes to mind, like Mythic Link, Little
Right.
Myth Marker,
Alpine.
Myth Adventures. Oh God, yeah. I mean, the funny thing is, Little Myth Marker. She is literally the marker for a gambling debt.
Yeah.
So fun.
Oh yeah,
So-
there were.
Gaps. I got to talk about one.
Um,
Tell us more.
Oh, I have one. So let's take a really, really classic example of folklore, and talk for a second about Rapunzel, the traditional story of Rapunzel. There is a huge, huge gap in there because the ending of Rapunzel is the prince gets blinded, the character Rapunzel is banished to a desert where she gives birth to twins, and eventually stumbles upon the prince and cries into his eyes and he's unblinded somehow. How many gaps are there in just the ending? Holy crap.
Mm,
Oh yeah.
that is weird ending. Oh my gosh.
Well, at least that ending for Rapunzel is better than some, because I've heard some endings where it is really dark.
Oh,
yeah,
yeah,
Little
yeah.
Mermaid. Hello.
Well, no, I mean literally. I'm talking for Rapunzel. I've heard endings where,
Oh.
as he's climbing up her hair to rescue her, right? He breaks her neck and falls to his death.
Mm.
I've heard that one too.
Yuck.
Yeah.
Okay.
The one that I told is the one out of Grimm Fairy Tales. So.
Yeah.
I don't remember what happens to the witch mother person in that one.
She
it's
gets
been
off
too
scot
long.
free, I believe.
Oh yeah, I think you're right.
So wrong.
I know. Talk about a gap, right?
Yes.
And yeah, that's it. You look at the Grimm's fairy tales, and you can mess with those so much.
Yes.
What about mashups?
Oh, I love mashups.
Mashups are
are
fun.
I mean, Shrek did that. Hey.
Yeah, yeah. Who was it? I think it was Neil Gaiman did, not Rapunzel. I think it was Snow White and the one who gets locked in the tower surrounded by brambles.
Sleeping Beauty.
Sleeping Beauty. Thank you. Yes. Yeah, he did a mashup of those two. I think. Don't quote me on that. I could be getting the wrong fairy tales. I know it was Sleeping Beauty, but I'm less sure about the first one.
Yeah. So I mean, that's just it, right? Making a mashup. What happens if it's the same person?
Yeah.
I mean, how many Prince Charmings are there?
Oh gosh. Yeah.
The world is full of them, because every fairy tale has one.
Well, that's just it, right? It's always Prince Charming. How many wives does he have? How many wives have died?
Yeah. Good question. Do they die in childbirth? Do they get killed? Is he a mass murderer?
And kind of saying, yeah. Then there's Into the Woods and Once Upon a Time.
Yeah. Well, Into the Woods is a favorite of mine because the Prince Charmings are the same Prince Charming.
There was I can't remember what series it was called, but it was basically like Hansel and Gretel versus the werewolves, which was I didn't get to watch it, but I wanted to. It looked a little dark, but it was like you can do crazy mashups.
Yes. Why not Princess Charming? Yes. Ooh, insert joke about Henry VIII versus Prince Charming, but not enough brain cells. Yeah.
So fun. Cutesy Cat said maybe each fairy tale is a past life of them and their soulmates or something and get reborn regularly.
Ooh, like
Now
Wheel of
that is
Time.
cool.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wheel of Time.
Wheel-
That's the Robert Jordan books I was talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've read the first of the Wheel of Time series. That's all I know.
Oh, you need to finish that series.
I keep getting distracted. There are so many shiny books out there.
Yeah.
Oh, what was that series now? I'm trying to think. There was a series that was based on like each book was a season and then each book was a traditional fairy tale. But they used it in a collection and it was fabulous. Oh my gosh, I can't remember.
Yeah.
The first one was like the story where the prince is the bear and he comes to collect his wife. And
Oh, that's a lot of different myths or fairy tales.
yeah,
like a lot.
Well, you guys chat. I'll see if I can find that series again because it was such a fun. They used a ton of different things in there, and it was really, really good. So,
Yeah. One of my favorite fairy tales, actually, I'm trying to remember what it is called, but basically, there's a lion in the woods, okay, there's a merchant with 3 daughters. And the merchant goes away to the city to find stuff and asks, what do you want as a gift for me when I'm returning from my journey? And one says, I just want the lark. The other says, oh, I want strings of pearls and rubies and all of these other things. Joking around, of course. And of course, the merchant isn't able to get the strings of pearls and rubies, but he does find a lark. Only it belongs to this lion in the woods, and the lion says, "Okay, it's basically Beauty and the Beast at this point. You
Yep.
can have the lark, but I want the first thing that greets you when you come home." And he's thinking, "Okay, it'll be the dog, right?" It's not the dog; it is the daughter who asked for the lark. So the daughter goes and marries the lion, who it turns out turns into a human at night.
Yeah. But you said, I mean, because honestly, and when you said $3, I was thinking, yeah, one asked for the lark, one asked for the pearls and rubies, and all the third one asked for was him to come home safe.
Yeah.
And it was the one who asked for him to come home safe that was the first to greet him at the door.
Yeah, I've heard that version too. There's so many different versions of
Oh,
the
yeah.
Beauty and the Beast trope. There's so many different. And speaking of gaps,
I think it might be Lan.
it's an Aesop fable. Yes, it's East of Sun and West of Moon or something like that. I can't remember what it's
Yeah,
called.
and that was the theme of the first book of the series that I was. So thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, but the Beauty and the Beast fable, who cursed the beast? And there are multiple different variations on this. Like the one that I just told is different from the Beauty and the Beast that like Disney did.
Yeah.
But there are multiple different versions of this is a human who has been transformed. Who did the transforming and why? It's rarely defined.
That is true.
One of my favorite examples of this was, I know I keep talking about Robin McGinley, but she's good. She did a book, Beauty, where it was not a curse set specifically on the person who became the beast. It was set on his family.
Mm-hmm.
And it was whoever makes the first erring step gets the curse, and it just happened to be him.
Yep. I mean, I'm going to go back to Mercedes Lackey with her Elemental Masters series.
Right.
She takes the old fables and stuff and makes them into stories about elemental mages.
Mhm.
You have earth, air, fire, water, and they have elemental spirits that guide them and whatnot, and they learn to be mages. Most earth mages cannot live in cities because they poison the earth,
Mm.
right?
Well, Victorian England is when that's set, right?
Yes, it is.
Makes perfect sense.
However, there is one that is an earth mage. She's a Middle Eastern earth mage in London. She's a doctor. So her garden is her sanctuary, and it's just out in her backyard type thing. But she's got her birds, she's got her snakes, she's got her, right, and all these animals. So,
Yeah.
and when you think about it, right, for the creatures that they have, for fire has salamanders, air has sylphs or sliffs, the water has your naiads, and earth can have your gnomes,
Mhm.
right? But there is one character that she puts in almost all of her books that somebody's going to eventually run into, not always, and that is Robin Goodfellow,
Ah.
the spirit of the wood. He is an elder entity.
Mm. And that's another interesting thing that you can do with fantasy sometimes is you can have recurring characters even when time is passing very quickly because people don't necessarily age the same in fantasy.
Right.
Or if you're me, you can say, I have this fantasy character that I'm going to put in all of my books regardless of universe because I can. That's why.
Yep. And that comes back to altering physics.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, the example we have here is sun rising in the west.
Mhm.
And that's what I did. And the reason being was, I'm just writing away. And I said, yep, the sun was setting in the east. Looked at my writing and went, well, that's a thing now.
Yeah.
I cannot find that series. I'd have to go back through Goodreads,
no.
and it's going to take me a while. If I find it, I'll share it. I can't. It was fabulous.
Share it in the book fair or whatever.
Yeah.
That channel is. Yeah. Share it there because I'm interested. I want to know what this is.
Yeah, if I can find it, I will. But I don't want to take any more time.
No,
because
yeah.
No, that's
it's
right.
not fair to people.
I mean, the thing is, how else can... Great Wall had something else I can support. The protagonist wasn't the final solution. He played a big part, but he was support at the very end, allowing someone else to make... Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's an interesting thing that we haven't talked about either is your protagonist necessarily the final solution to whatever the problem is?
They don't have to be.
They don't have to be. No.
I mean, that's just the way I'm looking at my books, right? My protagonist is not likely to be the final solution.
Yeah. My protagonist is and isn't. She okay, spoilers for book 3. She does solve the problems of the world, but she creates bigger ones.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's just it. Because I've already been alluding to war in my world.
Yeah.
And so, do you think they're going to listen to someone of the organization that's been causing this whole issue?
No.
Right. Even if they do happen to be of that same race?
No.
No.
No. If people are set to do war, period, end of story, it's going to happen no matter what any one person says. If there's a large enough group, maybe. Big maybe.
Yeah. So I'm going to have a character go talk to a council to try and convince them to stop the war. Is it going to work? Who knows?
Yeah.
But
This is a little... I have a thought. It's a little more sci-fi rather than fantasy, but it's a fantasy-ish sci-fi. There is a story that I am working on. It doesn't have a series name yet, but the first book is My Life as an Alien's Tour Guide.
Oh, yeah, I heard you.
Yeah. And there is a point at which there are two options. There is war in the future, or there is give us what we want so that we don't make war on you in the future. Which is what they want is leave us the F alone. And ultimately they choose we'll leave you alone rather than war in the future. But
Yeah.
it all comes down to the main character.
Yeah, well, the other thing too is, honestly, if you look at it, right, depending on which side is doing it, it's like, leave us alone or there's going to be war in the future. Okay, we'll leave you alone. There's still war in the future. Come on, humans are stupid.
That's true. That's
It'll
true.
always be that way, yeah.
Yeah, there's still war in the future, but with who?
I think also when a character isn't the end-all be-all solution, but a part of it, a start of it, when there's more than just the character, it really adds to it. It really helps bring flavor and that there's more possibilities for more story later on.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
just it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why I've got so many supporting characters.
Yeah. And really, the big speech that ends up solving the problem of the war in that story is given by the main character, but it is not her who sets everything in motion. She is just a tiny piece that happens to have a big impact.
Yeah.
It's the pawn that takes the king, basically.
Yep. But let's get back to the altering physics.
Yes. Oh, altering physics is fun.
I don't usually alter physics, although, and again, one of my favorite series, the Pillars of Reality series by Jack Campbell, the mages do that, and it's like supposedly there's a huge disconnect between magic and physics, but they get to break reality by bringing things into our existence, and it's been a lot of fun with that because they have very, very strict limitations,
Mm-hmm.
and it has to do with physics. So
Yeah. I mean,
I do like altering physics. Oh gosh, what was it I did recently? I can't remember. It's not coming to my brain.
well, let's go back to Makola Boyd had a comment. In my world, one of the protagonists fixed the issues of the world 2,000 years before. Now, there are new issues to face, and some of them are technically his fault and or cannot be truly solved by him.
okay.
Yeah. Yeah, sometimes you solve problems and it just makes more.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's the reality of reality, actually. But
Well, it shouldn't be perfectly clean up because there has to be consequences.
Well, that's
Yes.
yeah. And
I could say so many things to spoil book 3 of the Reaper Saga, but
Yeah.
I'm not going to.
and Sparkles says, in one of my series idea, Dog Grumman or Detective, he tries to be a solution, but the world sees him as a troublemaker.
Oh, that's a fun one.
Mm,
Yes.
Yep. I mean, that's just it. That's turning a trope right on its head.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely.
Yeah. And, that's, to use a urban fantasy example, that's the way the Dresden Files starts, is he's trying to be the solution, but the people that he is trying to be a solution for see him as trouble.
Yeah.
And they're not entirely wrong.
Well, yeah.
They're not.
All right. Well,
And thank you, Siobhan, for picking up the chat.
yeah. Not
Yeah,
a problem.
Sure.
So now we've got making it meaningful to the reader, something they can identify with,
Right.
like the struggles the character faces.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I had added that one because it was my son's comment, and I was like, ah, he was so right on that. Because
Yeah.
if there has to be something to draw the reader in, you have to have something that they can identify with to keep them there.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is not too much spoilers because you find it out in the first chapter of the book I've been writing for Belle. But the main character is in a war-torn country. She is an orphan because her father died in the war and her mother died giving birth. And she's an orphan. And you find this out almost immediately. And that is something that a lot of people in war-torn countries in our world experience.
Yep.
Mhm.
And like Panacine says, something that invests them in the story and characters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting, Cola.
Yeah. You want to read it there, Eli?
Yeah, sure. Rai is perceived as a god by some, but he is barely more than a child for his people. So it's a lot of responsibility on him that no one understands weighs on him. A lot of the responsibility on him that no one understands weighs on him hard, which is a play on the gifted issue, gifted child issue. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Having been a quote unquote gifted child, yeah.
It's such a curse to be one of those gifted children,
Oh.
I tell you.
Yeah. And usually you're not actually gifted, you're just advanced in some areas and repressed in others.
Yes.
Yep. All right, let's move on. Things we could add to fantasy that aren't commonly there. Or how can we use different elements, like dragons?
Right.
I know that Sparkles, in his War Mage, I believe that's what he's calling it now. It used to be the Rifle Mage. Dragons. They're only about the size of horses. Right? And not all of them fly.
Yeah.
So, I mean, think about it. You got dragon cattle. they can be tamed. They can, like, some can be tamed. So why not harness them? If, oh, look, I got a fire-breathing dragon. Well, into the forge you go.
Yeah. And Terry Pratchett did an awesome job of making dragons very,
Oh,
very different.
Yes, I loved
I
that.
love them.
Dragons was one of my favorite books of
Swamp
his.
dragons. I just love them. They're so
They're
pathetic.
And call back to a really old school example, Anne McCaffrey and her
Oh.
dragons.
Yes.
mhm.
And,
Yes.
and the funny thing is it got labeled as fantasy.
It's
when it-
really sci-fi.
when it's true
really
sci- I mean-
sci-fi.
The prologue tells you it's sci-fi.
Yes.
And they
But the first ones to come out looked like fantasy.
they did. But
That's true. The
like I
first
said-
ones.
and that was Dragonflight.
Yeah.
And the thing is right at the beginning in the prologue of Dragonflight, it talks about the Ruckbat system
Mm-hmm.
and how they were settlers escaping from a war, moving out
Yeah.
from a war-torn world.
And they managed to genetically engineer what are they called? Fire lizards?
The fire lizards.
Yeah, they managed to genetically engineer these fire lizards, the species native to the planet, into these large, huge dragons that could help them survive on this planet. And I love her world building.
Oh
Holy
God,
crap.
I know. And you're right, JC. Female authors have had to fight hard to be considered
Mm-hmm.
science fiction versus fantasy.
Yeah, it's true.
So when she wrote her B&B ships are true sci-fi. They
Oh,
could
yeah.
they could not argue that.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
she actually links her B&B ships into every other one of her series.
Yep.
Her Brain of Bronze. Because it's in Crystal Singer.
Mm-hmm.
It's in Petaby. There,
Trying to think of what is that series called? That's going to drive me nuts. It's been too long.
author?
It's Anne McCaffrey. I'm just trying to remember which series it is.
Are you talking Dinosaur Pirates? Or the
No,
Planet
not
Pirates?
Dinosaur. No, not that one. It's one of her more adult books, but I can't remember. That's gonna drive me insane.
Are you
It's
talking
been so
the Tower
long
on the
since I've
Hive?
read Anne McCaffrey.
Huh?
Tower on the Hive?
No, not Tower and the Hive. Different series.
Acorna and Acorna's Children?
Yes, that one.
I'm sorry, yeah. I'm a huge Anne McCaffrey fan.
Yeah.
So-
Cool.
I am too. In case you couldn't tell.
Yeah. Yeah, I know, JC. I loved it too.
Oh yeah, Tower and the Hive was good. I love that entire series actually.
Well, the thing is, the Tower on the Hive series actually starts with the Pegasus trilogy.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, the Pegasus trilogy is one of my favorite parts, actually, of that entire series.
Yeah.
Sorry, I am distracted by my head. Not even my headphones. Buddha's headphones are tangled. Sorry. Okay, there.
Yeah. I mean, the
Other
Crystal Singer
different
trilogy was really good too. What was that there, Shy?
Oh, it's just like we had paused, so I was like, oh, other different elements besides just dragons. But go ahead
Right.
and finish that. So,
Well, I mean, that's just it. Because other different elements, well, let's get into the Fae.
Mm-hmm. Or magical monsters, going back to our mythology panel.
Yep.
Yeah.
Chimera. Very
Yeah.
commonly used, actually, and not necessarily by name.
Sphinx.
Mm-hmm.
And the questions, the riddles, the riddle of the Sphinx.
so how can we use them differently than, say, take the Sphinx? How could we use it differently?
Maybe the Sphinx is the protagonist.
Yeah,
trying to
be-
find the riddle.
Yeah.
Or trying to find somebody who can answer the riddle to let them free.
Right.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Because in some traditions, that is exactly what happens when that Sphinx's riddle is answered. And in some cases, once they're freed, they actually attack the person who answered the riddle. And in some cases, they're like, "Oh, I'm free. Thank you. I'm leaving."
I mean, then you get into the genies. And yes, I specifically said genie, not djinn.
Yes, Jinn is something completely different.
Yeah. But the genies of the lamp type thing, right? Going into those ones. It's like, how I was like, oh look, I'm gonna wish you free. Blink, blink, blink. That's your first wish, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's your only wish then. So?
Yeah. Or, who did that? I can't remember. Somebody did a take on the genie in the lamp trope where the person who took the genie out of the lamp, basically.
Became the new genie in the lamp.
I've seen that one too, but I was thinking of a different example where they said, I don't particularly need anything. I'm good.
Yeah.
I want to say it was Neil Gaiman, but I could be wrong.
I mean, things to add that aren't commonly there, like gunpowder.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, gunpowder in fantasy? Ooh, yes. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, the funny thing is gunpowder has been around since about 2000 BC.
Yep.
It's been a while. Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
it was the Chinese who invented it, and they used it for their fireworks.
Mm-hmm.
So,
And then Westerners came across it and yeah. Anyway, oh,
how about anti-magic zones?
I love anti-magic zones. Either ones that are created or ones that are just natural.
Yeah. That's like having a race of creature beings that are immune to magic.
Yeah. It's like, you can cast a fireball at me. It's not going to hurt.
Yeah, it's like,
So, audience, what do you guys think could be awesome examples of things that we just don't have as much of, or twists?
Yeah. Here's an interesting question. What about crossbreeding in fantasy? Like a dragon human or a dragon gnome or whatever.
Dragon humans have been done.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
been done, but what do you think of it?
I mean, it depends on how you run with it, how you work with it.
Right.
Is the offspring a dragon? Is it a human? Is it something in between?
Right.
Is
If it is a if the mother is a human, is does she lay an egg?
Yeah.
Please no. That sounds painful.
It does, doesn't it? Yeah.
Oh, here's the worst one. If the mother is human, does the child come out with wings?
Oh, ouch. Yeah, that doesn't sound comfortable either.
Might need medical help there. Yeah.
Yeah.
So-
C-section in a fantasy setting, does that work? Because, yeah.
Yes.
Well, it could. I mean, it'd be more dangerous, but it could.
I mean,
Unless you've got magic to help.
well, the thing is,
Or it's an urban fantasy, maybe.
well,
Yeah.
hey, I have a, honestly, and that's how Amarna received her position as the royal physician
Yeah.
in my
Interesting.
story. Yeah. Because,
Michael, go ahead.
because she came in, all the midwives were panicking because this child was sideways. And they thought for sure the child and the baby were going to die. Amarna walks in and goes, okay, I need this and this. Move! Of course, some of the midwives went and told the king what was going on because she'd pulled out knives. Right? And was cutting into his wife. But when the king got there, she was bandaged up. The child was healthy and fine.
And mom was fine too, I'm sure.
Your mom was fine too.
Yeah. Yeah, the first person IRL to perform a C-section is like, holy crap! You did it and they lived. Wow.
Yeah.
Yep.
Michael, I had a lovely take on vampires.
Mm-hmm.
She said, like making the vampires I made are all hemophiliacs who have a great love of life and leave beautiful, lasting creations in their wake.
Well, yeah.
Mhm.
No one said the vampires had to be evil creatures either.
Oh yeah.
No.
They're just considered evil because they have to drink blood. But there's a reason they have
Yeah.
to drink blood.
And I keep going back to Robin McKinley, but she's one of my favorite authors. What can I say? She wrote a vampire book where there are vampires. They are evil. But there are different kinds, and you don't find this out until roughly halfway through the book. There are different ways of being a vampire.
Mhm.
And it is implied that the one way has benefits over the other. But the one vampire that you meet who follows that particular path is trying to be exterminated by the rest of the vampires.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I
My
mean,
goodness.
so anybody else have examples of things that aren't commonly seen in fantasy?
Let's see here. How about gods that are not creepers?
That's nice. That would be nice.
Well,
Wouldn't it be nice? Yeah.
Here's the funny thing. My deities in my world are pretty much just raised people who lived a good life and the people have venerated.
Mhm.
Yet they're called the Eldritch.
Yeah.
I mean, all Eldritch means is out of the world.
Mhm.
Yeah, most people when they see Eldritch think Eldritch horrors.
Yeah, not
Yeah.
necessarily.
Well, that's the more common use that we've seen. So I did. So it was interesting to hear.
Yeah, I have Eldritch gods in Bell, where they are the older gods. They are the ones that came before the newer gods in the world. So it's like Father Earth, Mother Sky, and then there's the wind is also an elder god, and the ocean is an elder god.
Well, yeah. That gives you earth,
But-
air, fire, and water.
Yeah.
And Makola Boy goes, the thing is that vampires exist in a lot of cultures and they all operate differently. That's right.
That's very true. I mean, Bram Stoker did it one way, and traditional vampires, oh my goodness, there are so many different varieties, and how do you deal with them? If you deal with them.
I mean, if you think about it, right? The Vampire the Masquerade game goes right into that very idea.
Mhm.
Because the La Sombra are, and the Setites are Egyptian type. Or, then you got the Cappadocian out of the Cappadocia Mountains. You've got the Ventru, which are your regal, and the nobility. You've got your Nosferatu, which are your sewer-dwelling, horrid-looking. The Malkavians, they're mad. The Ravnos, which are pretty much... That's one that I don't really care for, because it's stereotyping.
Mm.
Because they're based on the Romani.
Oh
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
that's no, don't,
Yeah, we don't wanna do
don't,
that.
don't.
Yeah.
If you're going to base something off the Romani, do it in a respectful way.
I mean, that's just it. Robert Jordan did.
Mhm.
Because his people of the Way of the Leaf are based on the Romani. The travelers, the ones looking for the song.
Yeah. And in Bill, I have not exactly a race, but a sect of humans who are sort of vaguely based off the Romani. Their thing is they follow the road
Yeah.
because their god in my world is the god of the road.
Yep.
Well, roads more accurately, but you get my point.
Yeah. Not unlike
Yeah,
fan fiction
exactly.
author, yeah. I mean, so, back to what kind of examples would people like to see? See, what we have right now are direwolves, anti-magic, gunpowder, alchemy, apothecary, herbal gardens, magical environment, What else would you like to see in fantasy? What would make it interesting for you?
Let me think.
For me, I'd like to see somebody thrown back in time and for things not to be what they thought they were.
Ooh, I like that idea. Yes.
You know, it's not the commonly, oh, this was this or this was that or this was the account of the time. It's something very, very different.
This is the account of the time, and they get back there like, this place is clean. I thought this place was supposed to be
Yeah.
filthy.
Yeah, yeah.
The peasants aren't dressed in horrible, itchy clothes, you know?
Yeah, yeah. Or what if, just what if you went back in time and the gods that we all think are non-existent, taking for example the Greek gods, there are people who still believe in them.
Yeah.
But the vast majority of people are like, okay, these are made up, right? What if you went back to Mycenaean Greece and they're real?
Yeah.
And you run across them.
What if you had an encounter with Zeus? I would run.
Fun. Sorry.
Well, the thing is having an encounter with Zeus would all depend on his mood.
Yeah, that's true.
Sure.
Okay, I am AFAB. I'm sorry. I know what his mood would be.
The thing is, he doesn't always seduce AFABs. He didn't always rape
That's
them
true.
either. There
Yeah.
were times where he just came down, spent some time with them, gave them a gift, and left.
That's true.
Like I said, it all depends on his mood. And if he and Hera had just had a fight or not.
Yeah, that's true. That's very true. Yes.
So I think we're at a point where it would be a good time for a break. Is that what we're up for?
Just about.
Okay.
Yeah.
We have another 10 minutes.
Okay.
One of the things that I really, really, really love to see in fantasy is not just like, okay, so most fantasy is like Renaissance, medieval. I want to see some technological advancement too. What are some technologies that you can use in conjunction with magic?
Engineering.
Engineering, exactly. One of the things that I really liked
Chemistry.
that Mercedes Lackey did was she actually came up with like a car-like vehicle, or maybe it was a boiler that functioned off of a fire spell.
The steam
I
boiler that
loved
blew
this.
up in the Collegium.
Yep, I loved that. I was like, yes, more of this, please.
Because what they were trying to do, I mean, originally they weren't trying to make something that would move stuff. They were just trying to make something that would make chopping wood easier.
Hmm.
And the boiler blew up, nearly killing.
Like 3 people, wasn't it?
Yeah, and one of them was
Lost a leg or something, I think.
one lost a leg, but they were pretty much ready to graduate anyway, so they became a teacher.
Mhm.
One was the sweetheart of one of the MCs.
Scalded, but fine. Yeah.
Yep. I mean, and that's she was also a daughter of a herald.
But not a herald herself. And
No.
that's, in that particular series, is a big deal where it's like your parent is a herald and you're not. Why not? It's like, first of all, rude. Second of all, just because, okay, my mom is a teacher, my grandmother is a teacher, you'll notice I am not a teacher.
Yeah.
Just because your parent is a thing does not mean you have to be.
I mean, think about it. My grandfather was an electrical engineer. My father was an electrical engineer and electrician. I'm not. And McCullough Boyd says diversity. Fantasy says, yeah, I like mixing magic and engineering things, using magic in place of technology or parts of tech things, yes. And McCullough's diversity. The failings of historical recording, the exploration of what point in legends and myth that truth meets story.
Yes.
Yeah. I will add, I love seeing magic in sci-fi. One of my favorite series lately has been the Starship's Mage series by Glenn Stewart. And he does a fabulous job of magic having to power like space jumps and things like this, and it's just been fabulous. He does all sorts of twists on that and how technology could really make that turn, try to utilize only part of what there is and make an engine out of it. I don't want to give out too much because that's further in the thing, but
Yeah.
he really tries to explore every aspect of that in his Starship Mages series, and it's been very, very fun.
I mean, that's just it. Fantasy and sci-fi. That's another way, because that's one thing we're going to do is look at specific time periods
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
later on in this, because that can play a big role in how your fantasy works.
Yeah, for terraforming a planet, and suddenly you find magical aspects you didn't even know could be possible, or
Or you're
so
terraforming
many other
you're
aspects.
terraforming a planet through technical means, and the planet fights back.
Yeah.
Ooh, yes, yes. Yes, I love the idea of trying to terraform a planet and the planet going ha 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 ha. No.
But I think it's about break time,
Okay.
so we'll be back in about 10 minutes or so. So we'll see you soon. If you have any more questions or comments, use the points and drop them in. This way we can
And
have
hi,
something to come back
Banshee.
to. Yes, hello, Banshee.
Hello, Pupper.
Oh, such a sweetie.
Sweetie.
Yeah. Whoops. Give me my. There we go. So we're back. Now where were we?
ST.
We were still working on the favorite examples. And thank you for the follow, the Bird of Inferno.
One of my favorite examples, because I was trying to go through my book list because my brain just is not recalling things as well as I'd like, is a mashup of Victorian times, but also with actual werewolves and vampires and everything. But they're all like in prim and proper society, and trying to get a werewolf to work into prim and proper society just doesn't work all that well sometimes. And
Especially
then
when it's
she
a
has-
female werewolf.
There are some, but they're rare.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
think about being in a corset.
Yes.
Oh, and shapeshifting? Oh,
Uh-huh.
no.
And they make it, she makes it a very painful thing for them.
Well, yeah.
But what I love is that the main character has no magic and therefore has
Ooh.
no soul.
Oh.
And so it's really, really fun. It's the Parasol Protectorate series by Gail Carriger. And it's one of my favorite unusual mashups. So
Yeah. Shoot, what was the example I was just thinking of? It has gone right out of my head.
Yep. One thing to remember when you're writing a fantasy: behind the scenes.
Mm.
Your NPCs have lives.
Yes, they do.
So,
Shoot, what is that book called? I just remembered there is a book series about a woodkeeper or woodskeeper who has a family, like has a wife and a daughter, and they are one of the central focuses of the story, but not the main focus. Like he maintains a relationship with his wife and his daughter while going out and doing all of this fantasy stuff. I don't remember. It's been too long since I read it. I can't even remember what it's called. But yeah, if your
Yeah.
character has family, either they're going to leave your character when they don't pay enough attention, or they need to
Yeah.
find a way to find the balance.
yeah. The other thing too is, one of my characters is an old man. His family's already moved away. They've got a life of their own. They've got kids of their own. But something that happens behind the scenes is someone kills them. And when the character finds out, he takes off. So you don't see him for a while in the book. Because he's off trying to deal with stuff. And when he comes back, he's not the same as he was. Because of behind the scenes.
Right.
And I mean, you gotta think about that. If you're going to leave a character somewhere, and they're going to be coming back with the focus, they have a life of their own. They're going to be doing stuff. So they're gonna have stories to tell when they come back.
oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Or,
Oh yeah.
or they're going to have trauma.
Or do they come back?
That's the other thing. Do they come back?
Yeah.
Has the trauma overtaken them so badly that they don't?
Yeah. Or maybe they just say, well, I had a life, but I have a new one now, and going back to the old one feels
Wrong? Yeah.
Yeah, well, yeah.
I mean,
It depends upon the life, of course.
Yeah.
But
I mean, I've got behind the scenes stuff going on right now in book 2.
Mhm.
And it is going to cause my MC some major problems.
yeah, there was a book or possibly series I was writing, The Meat of Poetry. I really need to get back to it, but at the beginning of the book, the main character decides, I'm going to go herring off on adventure now, and his family says, not without me, you're not. And they find somebody. There's there's a trader, like someone who trades goods in the story, and they convince him to let them on their boat by virtue of the fact that one of his crewmen has broken his leg and the other two crewmen are not leaving without him. So they say, okay, the crewmen who are not going to go anywhere can stay in our house and keep it for us while we're off on adventure.
Yeah.
That is something that you have to consider. Your main character is herring off on adventure, leaving their house and goods behind. What's happening with that house and goods? Are they going to come back like Bilbo Baggins and the Saxville Bagginses have invaded?
Yes.
And everything's being auctioned off?
Yeah.
Or in another one of my, because I was just kind of going through my favorite book series. There's by Drew Hayes, there's the Spells, Swords, and Stealth, where the characters are in a role-playing role, but they're the NPCs. It's called, the main title of the first book is NPCs.
I love it.
And everything is happening behind the scenes, and they're learning about why these crazy, all-powerful characters just go out and do these things that just don't make sense for an NPC. And the behind the scenes is all of this stuff building up to stuff starting to happen in the real world. I won't tell you more than that because it gives much better away if I tell more. But it's really, really a fun and insane aspect. Very well done and new.
I'm gonna have to find that now. That sounds awesome.
I will pop the title into the chat.
Yes.
There's a Guardians of the Flame series by Joel Rosenberg, where the main characters, they're doing they're playing a D&D game, but they get actually the players get transported into their characters, and now they have to do things, and the players are like, I don't know how to sword fight. Yeah, my character's a fighter. What the heck?
I can't remember if you said that was a book series or an anime.
It's a book series.
Okay, because there's an anime very similar called Log Horizon that my son has been making us watch. And we've been really enjoying it because it's so like twisted on its head, just really, really fun that way. So
I have now officially got that book, by the way, on my Kindle. I'm going to check it out later.
We love the series. Not all of them are out. He has like 3 or 4 different series, so it takes a while to get out. His latest one is not on audiobook, which you're sad about. Yeah. Super sad, because we do the audiobooks.
I mean, how about having 2 or 3 different types of magic that are that conflict with each other? I mean,
like elemental magic versus, for example, necromantic magic.
Yeah. Or like Melanie Ron did with the Dragon Prince series, with the Vahadri and the Dahamadri. One's use sunlight and one's use starlight.
Yeah. Or going back to Avatar: The Last Airbender, you've got the firebenders, the waterbenders, etc.
Yeah.
Yeah. And can you?
I love
use
that they had to all be used together later.
I know, right? Yeah.
Yep.
And my question is, could you theoretically have a situation where you can use more than one? Like, okay, Avatar: The Last Airbender can use all of them, right?
Yeah.
But can someone else use more than one?
Yeah. And I mean...
Or if there's a mistake and you end up with more than one.
Yeah.
But I mean, in the Dragon Prince trilogy, one of the main characters, Sinead, learns that she can actually access both. And it's supposed to be a genetic thing. You're genetically predisposed towards one or the other.
Ooh. Oh, that's kind of like Codex Alera. I know a few spoilers for that series, but spoilers, the main character starts off with no magic at all and ends up with more than one.
Yeah.
And I don't know how that works. Don't ask me. I haven't read the rest of the series. But I know that happens.
Yeah. And I mean, that's just it, right? Even in those books, there's behind the scenes stuff.
Hmm.
If you pick up your favorite fantasy novel and find out, are any of the NPCs static?
Yeah.
Or any of the secondary characters or tertiary characters, are they static?
Do they come back?
Yeah.
I don't. Yes, that was the second book. In the first book of the Reaper Saga, there is a character, seemingly a throwaway character, at the beginning of the book. It's a soldier who says, by the way, your town has disappeared, dropped off the map. You can't go there because you'll die. We're going to take you to this other city. And that is the last that you hear from that character in that book. He does return in the second one.
Yeah, and that's the other thing too. You can have a character come back like 2-3 books later,
Hmm.
and see the differences.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, what about say, if you have mages and gunpowder, how do the mages react to the gunpowder?
Yes. Can they
Is
use
it something new? Yeah.
Is it something new? What happens if they're faced with you have mages on one side of a war and rifles on another?
Can they use magic with the rifles?
That's just it. That's what Sparkles was looking at with his story. So,
And if your mages cannot use rifles, that opens up a whole new thing.
oh yeah,
That is very similar to the Pillars of Reality. I keep going back to it, but it's seriously one of my favorites.
well, the thing is, we usually end up doing that because it's like, okay, this reminds me of blank.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, what people can be one or the other, and they're constantly in conflict. And you know, a mage character who would have to pick up a rifle would have no idea, just absolutely none.
Yeah. That fantasy actually reminds me of the Dresden Files, which I was going to bring up for the character thing, actually. A character who comes back. I was thinking of Butters, who shows up in book 4, 5 of the Dresden Files. I can't remember. It's the one with the zombies. And then he doesn't show up for the next couple of books, and then he comes back, and then he doesn't show up for the next couple of books, and then he comes back, and then he's a major character all of a sudden. It's weird. It's cool. I love Butters. Butters is like my favorite character ever.
And what about having? I mean, this is something that we talked about in the writing trans characters. Having female or LGBTQ plus protags and characters. I mean, they are just people.
Yeah, it's true.
They just have different problems.
Yep. That's an interesting concept, actually. What if you had a character who was introduced as, for example, male, and then showed up in another book or another part of the story saying, "Hi, my name is Stephanie."
Yeah.
As a random name.
Well, I mean, that's just it. Because you know my protagonist is trans.
Mm-hmm.
You just don't know the history. I mean, I've got other characters who are trans, and you're going to find that out later.
Yeah, that's something I haven't actually done yet, is have a character transition in book. I'm going to have to think about that one.
I haven't written trans, but I am trying to write bi tactfully for non-humans, and I can't say a whole lot because it gives away parts of book 2. But
don't
it
give away book
is-
Don't give away that.
It is fun.
It is a theme. It is a theme.
Yeah, and it's fun. I couldn't just have 1 or 2 characters. I knew it had to be more because of a lot of things that happen, and it's been a fun exploration of putting those into characters that may or may not have been. It's
Yeah.
it's hard to. Yeah, sorry.
Or what about
I can't give them away.
what about building a society around being trans?
Oh, that could be interesting. Actually, I have something I might do with that because I have this character in Bell who is trans. And it's not explicitly stated at any point yet. But he is trans. He's one of the gods, actually. He's trans. He fell from the sky in female form. And transitioned. And I'm wondering if his people specifically are more open to trans characters than, or not trans characters, trans people than perhaps, for example, choosing at random the Elrian, for example.
Yeah. I mean, that's just it. I mean, I know I've got one culture in my world that is very open to it. In fact, they're respected. So much so that sometimes the pressures of the expectations are enough to push them over the edge.
Yeah. I could see that. Yeah, so the character I was talking about, the god character rather, is Suitar, who's not explicitly stated to be trans, but is trans. And Suitar is the god of sailing. So I'm wondering if perhaps the sailors are more open to people who are trans, or LGBTQ
Well, I mean,
in general.
I could see them being that way because they're going to see so many different cultures,
Mm-hmm.
and if they're doing that, they have to have an open mind.
Yeah, exactly.
And does that mean that they have any superstitions about a woman being on a ship?
No, probably not.
Whereas a lot of cultures
Did, yeah.
Yeah.
Or do in some cases,
Yep.
even today.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of the things about Bell is it is, I believe the term I'm looking for is noble bright fantasy.
Ah.
And that's something we haven't really touched on, is what flavor of fantasy is your world? Is it something where everything is very bright and noble and good? Is it grim dark? Is it very dreary and things are not all is not well in the world? Is it bleak? Is it there is magic and everything is terrible?
Mine I think would be considered noble dark. Because I do touch on a lot of dark topics.
Right.
But there is light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, I switch. It depends on which story I'm doing. I can't remember what I finally decided the Reaper saga was. It's not Noble Bright, I'll tell you that much.
No. I'd almost say it's almost grimdark.
It is almost grimdark. And you haven't even read the third one.
You have me as a beta.
Oh, that's right, I do. I need feedback, please.
Yeah, I know. I gotta find the book again. I know it's in my DMs somewhere.
I'll pin it later.
All right, thank you.
Oh, I'm gonna pop the iCast Bolt link to that because there's a lot of verbiage here, definitions, and he had a nice comparison.
Oh, he did.
Oh yes, that is exactly the one.
Because I was like, "What is my world?" And I don't remember it. I was like, "There's so many words, and I can't remember." So I thought I'd share that in.
Let me scroll down on this actually and figure out what it was. It was one of the darker ones. Excuse me. Excuse me. It's not grim. It's probably one of the gray or bleaks. Hang on, I'm looking. I'm gonna figure this out. I am.
I think mine is more towards like Nightcore,
Hmm.
Yeah,
but I'd have to look.
I'm just going up.
Maybe kind of night dark. I could see.
Maybe.
Yeah, I think
I-
mine's
I
more
s-
Noble Dam. Now that I look at it.
Yeah. Yeah, Noble Bright is not a common one, but I wanted a world in which things are generally good. There are some bad things that happen. Like there is a war in my world. It is the only war of that world, at least that the characters know about. I'm not going to say any more than that because that is spoilers.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, I can't hold it anymore, and I went boat earlier, but I gotta use the washroom again.
Okay.
So, you guys keep talking.
Okay. Was there anything that we didn't cover yet that you wanted to talk about, Chai?
Um, we didn't cover the if you do your research
Oh, right.
part, but I think maybe we should wait for that. I was just kind of looking through my favorite books again one last time. Where is my thing here? I had some really fun ones. So, like, nobody talked about the insanity that is the Artemis Fowl series, which again,
Oh,
my
I've not
family
read
would
that
love.
one. It's on my
It's-
TBR. It's on my TBR.
You must read them. They are so fun because it's the fairies, the fae have taken to underground, like deep, far underground, because they don't want to be found. And this young boy, because children can believe, he's
Mhm.
12, he's trying to save his family, and he's the boss of a mobster. So everything's a little bit on the other twisted side here.
Right. Yeah.
He
Okay.
captures a fae, and it's really, really fun. And the whole series, I love the mashup of technology and the fact that the fae are so far ahead of us that it's, they use magic, but they're very far ahead of us in magic too, or in technology too.
Mhm.
And yet the story is Artemis's growth
Mhm.
from being a mobster, son of a mobster, to being somebody respectable. So I love that really crazy twist of, yeah, the fae are like way ahead of us in everything in their magic, and we're just us.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
just-
Well, yeah, I can see that, though. Because the fae are longer lived. So they can spend more time just experimenting.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh shoot, what was I thinking of? You brought that up and I was like, "Oh, I remembered." And now I have forgotten. My brain, it is a sieve.
Yeah.
Okay, you were talking about Artemis Fowl and it reminded me of never mind.
Cutesy Cat was saying, do they have to be longer lived? I would say not necessarily so, but
Nope.
traditionally they are.
Yeah, traditionally they
Yeah,
are.
not necessarily. And actually, I've seen it done where brownies, for example, which is a type of home dwelling fae, are same lifespan as humans.
Yep. I mean, that's the other thing, too, is that's another way to twist it. Who says the fae are longer lived?
Mm-hmm.
Why can't
Or
the
do
fae
they
be
live-
shorter lived?
Or
Yeah.
if they live for them, they think they live longer, but they come into the human world and things suddenly change.
Ooh, I like that idea.
Because
Yes.
there's a disconnect between the realms. So
Yeah?
Or what if they need magic to live?
Mm.
We are a world that, as far as we are aware, does not have magic, or at least not much.
Yeah, our magic is so diluted because of our technology and our science
Mm-hmm.
that, I mean, there are only a few people who actually practice magic.
Yeah.
part of the reason I had the world's ideas, there was the book called Shadow Magic by John Lenihan. I got to hear him read it when he was just starting as an author, and he had a podcast of the book, and I loved it. But this young kid finds out his dad is one of the Fae, and had to stay out of the world to protect his son, out of the Fae world to protect his son. And then, you know, if the Fae come in here and they're really old, they instantly die because they touch ground and they are the age that they were, you know, so they're dust, you know. And so it's just this really, really fun mix. The rest of the stories are a little bit sadder, but the very first one was an absolute riot to read and listen to. And I loved how he put that twist on traditional Celtic mythologies, and yet had the real world, and the kid has to choose then what's he gonna do.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Actually, we've got about 45 minutes left.
oh,
And I was just thinking, did you want to take another break?
I'm okay right now.
yeah, I'm okay. I might keep munching on my crackers if nobody minds, but I'll turn off my mic when I munch on my crackers. Oh, but I am okay otherwise.
All right. So, does the audience have any questions? Anything specifically about writing fantasy?
Yeah. Or do you have any books or examples that you would like to share with us? Maybe
Yeah.
there's something we've overlooked.
Definitely. And then we haven't covered do your research on something.
No,
if you're
we
basing
haven't.
it on real.
No.
But that's easy enough to do. If you're basing it on something realistic, if you're looking at technology, do your research. Look at the
Yeah.
time period you want your world in. Look at the technology level of that time period.
And the cultural attitudes.
Right. Because the thing is, you could have a time period that has a higher tech level than they should, but now you've got to explain why. How'd that happen?
And does the culture that have that, are they feeling, we are so technologically superior? Or are they going, well, why don't you guys have that? I mean, isn't it just normal?
Or maybe they're actually going, they have a high tech level because they feel inferior.
Yeah, because we don't have magic. We have to make up for it.
Right.
QT has research. I'm sorry. Some of the things, though, that you come across will be more insane than fantasy could ever be. I'll give you an example from what I came across. There was, and this is real world, a real world Japanese sword made by Muramasa. It was actually a dagger that was found at a rummage sale in a tiny town in Canada. A rummage sale.
Oh my.
And it was missing for forever.
A Muramasa Musashi? Blade?
It was a dagger. It was a tanto.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. It's a
and-
Muramasa Musashi blade.
Yeah, it was by Muramasa. And it was found in Vernon in a rummage sale.
Yeah, I know
And so
about
I had
that
to do
one.
an article on it.
I know about that one. I live in Vernon.
Yeah, I knew. This is part of why I had to bring it up, because I'm like, isn't that just insane? So yeah,
How did it
sometimes
wind up there?
I don't know. And how did I stumble on that? I was looking up like Muramasa and Masamune blades,
Oh, God.
and I was like, a rummage sale. I must include this.
Well, yeah, I mean, the funny thing is, anybody caught with a blade like that outside of Japan are likely to have the Japanese come down on them, grab them, haul them back to Japan, and execute them for treason.
This person, once they realized what they had, contacted Japan and said, we have it. We want to give it back.
Yeah.
So
that's-
it did
that-
end up in the right place.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
that's the thing. It's like, we was like, I don't want to. I want this, but I can't. I can't keep this. This is a national treasure.
Yeah.
I haven't heard of them being executed, but I have heard of
We're taking you to
strong
Japanese jail.
hints.
We're putting you in Japanese jail, which, from what I understand, is not friendly.
Oh no! I had to research that. It's hell.
It's like the Russian gulags.
Yeah.
But anyway. So anyway, research can be fun. It doesn't have to be a drag. Find something that makes you interested and dig into it, and find the insanities in it.
Oh god, yeah.
Yep.
I mean, Cutesy Cat, I can give you the name of someone who loves research.
Mm-hmm. I can too.
Yep.
We're thinking of the same person.
Mooncloud.
I was thinking of Sparkles, but yes.
Mooncloud
Both.
specifically said that he loves research on the panel last night.
Oh, that's right. He does. Yes.
Sparkles loves historical research.
That's true. If you're looking for historical research, talk to Sparkles. He knows so much about history. Just so much. That's why I gave him the food and history book last night. Is like, you need to read this. You will love this book.
Yeah. Because I mean, he wants to. He's getting his education to become a history professor,
Mhm.
or at least a history teacher,
Yes.
because he has such a love of history. And you'd be surprised how interesting researching history can be.
Or just research. You fall down rabbit holes.
God, yeah.
and
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's like, I'm going to research medicinal plants, for example. Oh wow! Did you know that willow bark was used to cure fevers and
Yes.
stop pain? Yeah, I know you know this, but not everybody.
Yeah.
This is where we get aspirin. Did you know that rosemary has whatever medicinal properties rosemary has? Did you know this, that, and the other thing? Yeah.
Did you know
it's
that
a rabbit hole.
Did you know that burdock root is actually used as a painkiller too?
I did not know about burdock root. Yes.
Or, I've had to research the Japanese prison system and read police not booklets, but like research papers online, and I didn't think they would be fascinating, but because I found a documentary on a couple of guys who had been former Yakuza, it made it interesting. I wanted to know more. And so, yeah, I found out, what the rituals were like. I found out what how they recruited, and it can be a lot of fun. It can definitely be a rabbit hole, because I do think Google thinks I wanted to join the Yakuza at one point because I didn't think to put it as anonymous.
Actually,
Yeah,
yes.
Google. Go ahead.
Swiftness author goes, potatoes are one moldy basement away from deadly nightshade. No, they're not.
No,
they
they're
are
not.
deadly nightshade.
Yeah,
you're
are.
eating the tuber.
They're in the nightshade family. So
Yeah.
are
Yep.
tomatoes.
Yep, don't eat tomato the plant part, just eat the tomato-y bit.
Well, no, the thing is Cutesy Cat, the tuber itself is safe.
Yeah,
It's the
especially
red.
if you cook it.
It's the red berries that you see on the top of the plant that you want to avoid.
Aren't the plants
The plant
In
itself,
general,
yes, but the tuber itself, the potato itself, is fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because we have nightshade that grows here, and we can't keep. I try so hard to keep it out of my yard. It just
Yeah.
it's invasive.
Yeah.
So
A research rabbit hole that I fell down recently was earthquake research, specifically seismology stuff. I think Google thinks I want to be a seismologist now,
Oh,
because I was trying to find out about how faults worked, and specifically the strike slip faults, and it's just fascinating. That's almost a word. Fascinating research. And I found out so much that I didn't know. Like the Richter scale that I was taught in school is no longer used, really, because it's only specific to Californian earthquakes. They use a different one. I don't remember what it's called off the top of my head, but it depends upon which fault you're talking about. They have different scales.
Yeah, I mean, Google thinks I'm a mass murderer.
Oh, they think we're all mass murderers.
Well,
Are you
no.
kidding me?
Well, the thing is, I've looked up different types of injuries.
Hmm.
I've looked up arterial spray.
All of us have looked up.
Yeah,
insane
yeah.
things.
I mean,
We all know about arterial spray. It doesn't.
I mean, I looked up how long does it take someone to die from slitting their wrist?
Mm-hmm. Not long, but
No.
long enough.
Mm-hmm. I mean, disposing of a body.
Oh yeah,
Pigs. That's all I'm gonna say.
don't want to know.
They're not. Pigs are not efficient enough because they still eat bones, which can be DNA sampled.
Mm.
Quicklime.
This is getting into the gory that I don't.
Yeah.
wanna-
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
Sorry,
we'll
I'm
get out of that.
sorry.
Yeah, sorry.
We're hitting squick.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah. Okay. Fantasy research. Okay. So, I had the opportunity recently to talk to an actual seismologist, right? And I talked to him and I said, okay, so the San Andreas fault isn't going to go all at once. It is impossible. And he said, yes, you are correct. But if that did happen, what would it look like? And he was able to give me an actual answer, which was if that did happen, you would have lots of very big earthquakes happening, not all at once, but boom, 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 all up and down the fault.
Yep. It would be a chain reaction.
It would be like a zipper.
Yep. It would start at one point and zip its way down.
Yep.
And that's when they're talking about the big one, that's what they're talking about, is that type of a reaction. Otherwise, because I mean, if you have an 8.9 on the Richter scale in California, part of that land is going to be submerged.
Not necessarily.
You're in a subduction zone.
Well, when I say not necessarily, I mean it depends on where you're talking about. It also depends on where the quake is hitting. If it's hitting like in the middle of the fault, not so much.
No. Thing
If
is,
it's hitting near the bottom end, that's in the Coachella Valley, there's a really good chance that suddenly that's going to be part of the Gulf of Mexico.
yeah.
If it's hitting at the top end, on the other hand, that's going into the ocean.
Oh, you mean Vancouver? Yeah, it's gone.
No, not Vancouver. It's actually Mendocino, I want to say, California.
The San Andreas Fault goes all the way up to Vancouver, BC.
No, it doesn't actually.
It
It goes to the very top of California. I want to say Mendocino, but don't quote me on that. I could be wrong.
Because I thought for sure the San Andreas went all the way up the coast.
No, there's another fault that meets it. It's a subduction fault. The San Andreas is a strike slip.
Oh, okay.
And they are very closely connected, but the subduction fault is not likely to be triggered by the San Andreas. It's
No.
vastly unlikely.
But the San Andreas is likely to be triggered by the subduction.
That is true. Hydrate.
Sláinte!
Yeah.
Hydrate.
Thanks,
Where's
man.
my hydrate?
Yes, we needed it.
Mm-hmm. I found my hydrate.
And yes, I mean, we're talking fantasy, but I mean, this is a fantasy that can happen in modern times. So urban fantasy, post-apocalyptic fantasy.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and your magic can, you could utilize it to start an intensive earthquake. So you could use it anywhere.
And that's why I'm doing this research, is because I have a fantasy story I'm writing with Sable where we want a giant earthquake to be a possibility, if not happen. And it is going to be caused by a magical creature.
Yeah.
Spoilers.
But I mean, here's the other thing too, is you know what else would trigger the San Andreas? The Yellowstone volcano.
Not necessarily, but possibly.
The reason I'm saying that is because once it starts to erupt, it's going to send shockwaves.
Mm.
That and the lava being spewed out is going to change what's happening underneath.
That's true. That could put more stress on the, because that's what causes earthquakes. Is not so much the stress that is being caused, but the release of stress. That's an earthquake.
Yeah. It's that sudden release.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, what was it? I'm gonna have to watch the interview with that seismologist again because I have already forgotten what he described it as. It wasn't. I heard another geologist describe it as the snap of a rubber band once it's broken.
Yeah.
And the seismologist I talked to had a different example, but I can't remember what it was.
How about something like take a knife on the thing? Is that bend it back and then all of a sudden it comes off your finger?
Hmm.
Because
Yeah.
as it slips off the finger, it's gonna make the thunk. Your one hand's gonna move up and the knife's going down.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it is.
Let's see here. Also to ponder is dragons usually seen as big. What effect do they have on the areas where they live? Dragon lands, ground shakes, trigger natural things. Yeah, exactly. There is a. I live not too far from the Griffith Observatory here in Los Angeles. I've been there a couple of times, and they have a seismology, a seismograph. That's what I'm trying to think of. Only it's one of the old school ones where if you jump up and down in front of it, it makes like you've made an earthquake. Only you haven't.
Yeah.
Which is why they don't use that model anymore because it's not as accurate as it could be.
It's too sensitive.
Yeah.
And that's what comes down to, sensitivity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they only want to be picking up actual earthquakes, not somebody is walking next to the machine.
Yep.
I also had to research seismology machines, which was interesting because, wow, there have been a lot, actually.
Oh, the seismographs? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know that
The oldest...
you know,
Go ahead.
I was gonna say the original one was made in China?
I did know that, yes. It was a system of dragons with balls in their mouth, and it would show you the direction that the earthquake had happened in, but not necessarily where it was or how far away or whatever.
Right.
Mm.
Actually, and the
That's
power,
brilliant.
you could tell by the power of it by how many balls actually fell out.
Yep.
People are so inventive. We think that we're superior nowadays, but they came up with amazing things, water clocks and star compasses and things that we still haven't even figured out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's the whole thing, right? We have technology that we can't understand from before there was supposed to have been any kind of technology like that.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly, the Antikythera mechanism.
Yeah.
Which I don't know what that is.
It was a device that was found at the bottom of the Mediterranean Sea, along with a lot of Mycenaean jugs and vases, and it had been rusted over. By the time when they actually got it and they actually x-rayed it in a way that they could actually take it apart and look at it, there are about 14 different cogs in it.
Wow.
Oh wow. Complicated.
And it's very complicated, and the fact that it actually tracks the rotation of the sun, well, the Earth around the sun, the rotation of the moon. It can give you when the lunar eclipses were, when the solar eclipses were. It could give you leap years. It calculated all that,
Wow.
and that is
even-
just a theory,
Yeah.
That we know of, anyway.
right?
There were even the sundial rings.
Right.
You know, we're so used to thinking of a sundial being a gigantic thing that's outside, but there were the sundial rings. I think it was a gift to Henry VIII. I can't remember for sure, but I find them fascinating because you could just pull this out of your, pull it off your hand and tell what time it was,
Yeah.
in a time where, before pocket watches were invented. And it just fascinates me.
Or you just hold your hand up and look at it.
True, but that's too easy.
Of course it is. But I mean, then there was the actual sundial rings where it was 3 rings on a platform. And depending on where each shadow landed, would give you month, day, year.
Yep. They have one kind of like that at the Griffith Observatory. And actually, they have to tune some of their instruments at the Griffith Observatory. I found this out because we went on my birthday, which is, coincidentally, the autumnal equinox, approximately 2/3 of the time. Give or
Nice.
take. Yeah. So we went and they said, okay, so this is the day that we are adjusting our sundial or whatever it was. I don't remember. It's been like 5 years. This is the day that we're doing this because as the Earth rotates, our sundial or whatever it was gets a little bit off kilter and we have to adjust it every equinox.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's because of the axial tilt and the Earth's wobble.
Mm-hmm.
And,
Get into ephemeris data then.
and the other thing too is if you know what season you're in, like you know how it's the age of Aquarius.
Oh, right. That's the star chart thing that they have.
Vernal equinox. When you're looking to the east when the sun just before the sun rises, it's the constellations just above the horizon.
Yep. Yeah, they have a thing for that and talked about the one that starts with an O that nobody knows about.
Oh, the dragon one?
Yeah, the dragon one. I can't remember what it's called. Or something.
Yeah. Orchidepilus or something?
Something like that, yeah. And technically a lot of people fall under that rather than Virgo and something else.
Yeah, 'cause there's 13 houses, not 12.
Yeah. And Virgo is actually technically like 4 or 5 months because it's huge right now for us. So yes, your star chart, it may be inaccurate.
Ophiuchus.
Yes.
You type it into the chat because I have no idea. That's all kind of jumbled to my ears. It'd be interesting to look more up.
We're still, we're on the dawning of the age of Aquarius.
Yeah. Not yet, but we're getting there.
Because each age is about 2,600 years.
Thank you. I see it now.
Yes, that one. I'm horrible at names.
And thank you, Shadow Talon. But, I mean, that's just it. Because when Christ was supposedly roaming the earth, he said, he was talking about the age of Aquarius, being the, when the earth was when he'd be returning.
So in about
I don't
500
recall that.
years.
Yeah, the water bearer.
I'll have to go look it up again.
Sorry. I'm stretching my wrist and it's making all kinds of poppy noises at
Oh,
me.
you just took it out of the brace again?
I did. Because it was itching, so.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
C'est la vie.
For those of you who missed it, I kind of got tendonitis in my hand and it's healing. It's just taking its time. I did a good job apparently.
Good job of what?
Getting tendonitis. Good job of getting tendonitis.
Yeah. Oh.
What's really sad is I don't actually know what I did. I think I went to like stretch my wrist and something went poing.
Well, the thing is, tendonitis is also known as the repetitive motion.
Hmm.
So if you've been sitting there type, you can get it if you don't
Yeah.
give yourself breaks.
You have to take care of yourself.
I am.
Yeah.
Chaos.
Yeah. And Fantasy, you're right. The Mayan calendar. They thought the world was going to end because the Mayan calendar ended. But the Mayan calendar didn't end. It just went back to the beginning.
Hmm.
It only goes up so far because everything is cyclical.
I've been through so many apocalypses at this point that I'm pretty convinced that the world is never going to end. We will just all die. I mean, we're all going to die eventually anyway, right?
Of course we are.
Everybody does.
Can't live forever.
Nope.
Unless you're the Highlander or a vampire.
There can only be one.
Yeah.
So, thinking about apocalypses, and again, me going back to anime because I like anime.
I
There
like
was a
anime too.
Fabulous anime called Scrapped Princess, where
Oh!
she was the key to the apocalypse. And I'm not going to tell too much more, but it really was a fun twist at the end. And that was, yeah, they did
just-
well.
I'm just quietly dancing over here because I loved that anime.
I haven't seen that
Friend of
anime.
mine got me. What?
I haven't seen that one.
Oh, you need to.
Mhm.
But I
It's
mean-
really good. It's really good.
I have been watching the Lotus War.
Which I have not seen yet.
Oh.
So
I loved Scrapped Princess though. Oh my god.
I mean, I love SAO, the original, and second, not the
S-
third.
you have to don't
Sword
don't use-
Art Online.
Okay, yes, I've seen a little bit of that.
Yeah.
A little bit.
And technically, yes, the sun will explode, but it's going to be a very slow process. It
we-
will eventually expand, but it's going to take like hundreds of thousands of years.
I think we still have about 4 million years on that.
Yeah. And it's going to be a bit. It's going to be a minute.
Yeah.
Just a minute, yeah, just a little.
Just a minute. Just a minute. We got time. Trust me. We'll kill the Earth long before that happens.
Pardon me while we move 100 light years away. Thank you.
Yes, exactly. Hypothetically, we'll have the technology by then, right? Right?
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Yeah. Someday the Earth will end. None of us will be here because we'll be dead.
Either, yeah. Or the humanity's gotten off this rock.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And really, eventually, the universe is going to die because it will get too far apart. And yeah.
Well, no, actually, someone was talking about what happened before the Big Bang. What was there before the Big Bang?
Oh, that's a big
That's-
can of worms.
That's a huge can of
Well,
worms.
the way I look at it is, you know how each universe or galaxy has a black hole in the center,
Hmm.
and we're supposed to be due to mesh with the Andromeda galaxy in, I don't know, a million years or
We're
so.
starting. We've actually started doing
Yeah.
that already.
So, but
Um,
when the two black holes meet, it's going to get bigger.
Yep.
One's going to eat the other one, type thing. So, who's to say that the Big Bang wasn't caused by a previous universe all collapsing into one big black hole, and then the black hole just exploding out again?
It's possible. We don't know.
Who knows? I think we're about at time.
Oh, yes.
We are.
Does anybody have more questions? We totally rabbit holed, but it was fun. I hope you guys had fun with our rabbit holing here.
Yeah.
But do you guys have any questions?
I I don't have any questions. Well, I have lots of questions, but not about this.
We all have questions.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just it. We all like to rabbit hole,
Yeah.
even though only one of us is a lappin'.
Yeah. Rabbit. I need to add bunny ears to this avatar is what I need to do.
Yeah, see, my virtual avatar actually is a bat.
There's mine.
Yep, because you're a bee.
Yeah, a fox bee.
Foxby! Yes, it would not actually be hard to add bunny ears to this avatar.
No, I wouldn't.
I'm gonna do that. Not right now, but eventually.
All right, so let's do our outro.
Yes.
Okay.
So we'll start with Shy Red Fox.
My encouragement to you all is to find your niche. Dig in, play with it, explore, see where you can go with it, and pick the best out of that.
Eli?
Yes, I am Eli Quake, and I would also encourage you to read a lot of fantasy because a lot's been done, especially in the past 30 years or so. Like, there's been a lot of new conventions created in fantasy, and you can steal. That's allowed as long as you file off the serial numbers.
Sparkles would have said this: don't be afraid to play with things and experiment. Don't force unique.
Definitely.
And for
Yeah.
me, is don't be afraid to take on real world issues. Because fantasy is a great way to take real world issues and highlight them.
Oh, yeah. I do that. Terry Pratchett does that. You do that.
Mm-hmm.
Eli does that.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Oh, Terry Pratchett did it like a master.
Yeah.
I missed that man. I
Yeah.
do.
Me too.
And yeah, especially Good Omens.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Or Thud. Or.
Yeah.
Dragons,
All of them?
dragons.
Yes.
I mean, I have
Or
I have an homage to Terry Pratchett in my librarian, in my first book.
Good for you.
Yes, he is a pedantic pain in the butt. And he pontificates, and he uses words that are so beyond his lexicon, he shouldn't be using them. He's trying to prove he's the smartest person in the room.
because he probably is.
No.
Not always. Okay.
Anyway, we hope that this was fun. It was fun for us. We hope that it gave you ideas to go forth and create amazing things.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes. Go forth, read books, create amazing things.
Yeah. And talk to people.
Yes.
If you want to do research,
Learn.
talk to people.
Yeah.
Find out what they consider would be a good idea for a fantasy.
Mhm.
And then play with it.
Yes. Always play with it.
Definitely.
So we're going to be reading out to Writer's Conduit.
Which has 8 minutes and 30 seconds until the closing ceremonies.
Yep.
Woo.
And my personal raid call is stay true. Stay true to yourselves.
good one.
Stay true to your dreams. And we will see you.
Thank you so much.
And we will see you all over at the Writer's Conduit for the closing ceremonies. Bye.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Bye.